Hi, everybody. It's Miss P. Now that you are all feeling pretty comfortable and confident with your journalizing, I want to talk about the next step of the accounting cycle. Remember, the cycle is the process, the steps that we have to follow to get the financial information recorded. So we call the next step posting. Now, I will say this. Posting is something that's going to be done automatically in this day and age. So the computer is going to take care of it for us, but I always like to teach it and practice it once or twice just because I think it's important for you to really understand what happens once you journalize something. Where do those numbers go? And then where do they, if they go from point A to point C, I think it's important to understand step B. So what happens in the middle? And then also that's helpful if you need to ever, remedy some errors, you'll be able to kind of trace your steps back. Posting is probably one of the easiest things that we'll do in accounting. So some of you might be cheering about that. It's literally just transferring information from our journal over to our ledger. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. A ledger is just a group of accounts. We have two different ledgers. So imagine two different groups of accounts. We have the general ledger. So that's the one that contains all those main accounts that we would see in our chart of accounts, the ones that we've been working with all along, like supplies and capital and cash, etc. And then we have this subsidiary ledger. So a subsidiary, my goodness, say that 3 times fast, right? Is kind of like a branch of the general ledger. So this is where we're going to keep the accounts that relate to one of our general ledger accounts. So for instance, if I have accounts receivable in my general ledger, I'm going to have all the customer accounts in the subsidiary ledger. And same with accounts payable, only I would have the vendors. So when I post, I want you to understand that there's 5 steps for that as well. You see, it's the date, the page number, the amount, calculate the new balance. That's the only part that actually involves any work. And then the account number as a reference. And we'll do that regardless of which ledger we're posting to. So I'm going to walk you through the posting process, but I just want to show you this so I don't have to keep going back and forth between screens and you don't have to either. After we're done posting, we're going to do a couple of things to prove that what we've done is correct. So one thing we'll do is use a trial balance. You're all familiar with that. That's just a list of those general ledger accounts showing that total debits equal total credits. And then we're also going to prepare something called a subsidiary schedule. And I'll show you what that looks like. Okay. So I'm going to exit out of this screen here and I'm going to bring you over to this posting practice problem. So I have posted this for you, this exact same problem. And what I want you to do is watch the video, follow along, pause it when I ask you to pause it, and then, rewind it and watch it again if you have to. So when we're posting, as you can see here, I've given you a section. So really it's just one day of a company's completed journal. And what I have to do is I have to get all of this information over to my ledger. So this is what a ledger might look like. So you can see here, there is a space for each account. We can see those account numbers that we learned when we learned the chart of accounts. So this is my general ledger with all these main accounts. And then here is one of my subsidiary ledgers. So here I have my customers listed in the accounts receivable ledger. And then in the accounts payable subsidiary ledger, I have my vendors. Okay. So I'm going to come over here and show you how to post. I need to move each of these amounts to the relevant account in the general ledger. So the first account on September 30th, this is all coming from journal page 9. I am going to post accounts receivable, a debit to 477. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to find my accounts receivable account, and we remember the assets are first. And on September 30th, this came from journal page 9. I had a debit of $477. Well, hopefully you remember how to calculate balances. As you can see here, there's an existing balance already in accounts receivable. It had a debit balance of $675. So if it's a debit balance of $675 and then I'm debiting $477 more, I'm going to add them together. Now I'm going to use Sheets to do that. I'm going to hit equals. click the number I wanted to add, plus, and click the other number I wanted to add. And then I'm going to hit enter. And so you can see there are 4 steps here. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. The last step is I want to show where this stuff went from the journal to where. So I take this account number 1130 and I come over here to my journal. In this post reference column some of you had asked about, I'm going to type in that 1130. Okay. Now, normally I would be done, but because this one also is in the subsidiary ledger, I also need to make sure that Iona Hawkins account gets updated. So you only have to do 2 things. You only have to do 2 accounts for the ones that have accounts receivable and accounts payable, okay? So I'm going to come back over to my ledger and I'm going to find the subsidiary account for Iona Hawkins. And that should be down here. So this one doesn't have anything in it yet. So I'm going to set it up. So I'm going to say, okay, on September 30th, comes from journal page 9. All of these are the same. Debit of $477 was made. And you'll notice I only have one balance column option here. There's no credit. And that's because this account really shouldn't end up with a debit balance. Doesn't mean it never does, but I could show it as a negative if I had to. So there's my debit balance. So whenever you look across, you should have 4 numbers. So I have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. I sound like I'm counting off for a dance a little bit, right? So then I'm going to take that 120, that account number, and what I'm going to do for these is I'm going to come here and I'm just going to put a slash and I'll put that 120 so that I see it went to both accounts. So this is just a way to sort of cross-reference our work. Okay, let me do a little more with you, okay? So we're still on that same entry, but it doesn't matter. We're going to go line by line. So sales is going to be credited for $450. So I'm going to go back to my general journal. I'm going to find sales. Here it is. So on the 30th, page 9. I already forgot the amount. I think it was $450. Yes. Yes. It's a credit. So I'm just bringing it over exactly as it was. I don't change anything. It's like I'm just saying, okay, these transactions happened. I need to make sure the accounts show it. Otherwise, I would have to go through every line of every journal to calculate a balance. This is going to allow me to see an updated balance anytime. So credit balance existed already, and now I'm crediting again. So I'm going to do equals this plus this. And my new balance is here, $98,475. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 steps. I'm going to take this 4110. I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to put it in the post-reference column. Okay, next one, sales tax payable, credit of 27. Let's go over to my general journal. Sales tax payable on the 30th. As you know, or could probably imagine, these will not always be the same dates and the same numbers. It just so happens I'm giving you this short little problem. Credit of 27. There's already a credit there. So I'm going to do equals this plus this. There's my new balance. Okay, and I've got number 2140. I'm going to come back over here, and I'm going to put 2140 there. Okay. So what I want you guys to do, if you have to, rewind what I just did and watch it again. I want you to remember too, let's just take an example. If these were on opposite sides, so if this was a credit balance and then I debited it, you would have to do what we did with a T account. So you would have to subtract to find your new balance, okay? So then what I want you to do after you've watched as much as you need to, I want you to finish posting the rest of these accounts. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but remember you have to do this one too. So that's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So you have 14 more numbers that I want you to move from this general journal over to your ledgers. Okay. Once that's all done, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you guys stop there. I think that's enough for today. So I don't want you to go on to these other 2 tabs. You don't have to submit this problem yet. I can see how much work you've done. I can click on it because I generated the assignment. And what will happen is with our next class, we will come back together and we'll finish out these two other steps. Okay. All right. Let's see if I can stop this video.